Mr. President, we are ready and it's 6
Ready to go?
o'clock.
All right, we're 6 o'clock. Welcome to the Common Council meeting. Tonight we'll have the pledge led by Councilwoman Betsy Means Davis and a prayer, the Honorable Thurman Adams. Everyone, please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Lord, thank you again for bringing us here tonight together, and we're here to serve our community. We just ask for your guidance on these decisions we're making. Help us to stay focused on what's best for everyone who calls this city home. Give us patience where it's needed and wisdom where it matters the most. We just pray it all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Mr. Asher.
Councilwoman Wilson,
Present.
Councilwoman Means Davis,
Present.
Councilman Johnson,
Here.
Councilwoman Sanders, Councilman Adams,
Here.
Councilman Harold,
Here.
Councilman Reed.
All right, first order of business be the reading of the minutes from the October 4th meeting. You've all gotten a copy of that. Any questions regarding the minutes?
I'll second.
Motion and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right, just pass that in to us. We good? Okay. Old business, having none, to go over from last time, new business, ordinance 253045, Unified Development Ordinance, text amendments. Ms. Wilson.
Whereas the Common Council of the City of Shelbyville, Indiana recognizes the need for orderly growth and development within the City of Shelbyville and those areas within its planning jurisdiction. Whereas the City of Shelbyville has an existing Unified Development Ordinance that regulates development within its jurisdictional areas.
Motion to approve is read.
Motion approved and seconded. This is updating some things it looks like with the Unified Development. The ordinance is there. Mr. Rue, what do you have for us?
Evening, Council. Adam Reed, Planning Director. The Plan Commission has been working for well over a year now on a few UDO text amendments. If I can share my screen. Okay. So, share my screen and then get my slideshow. Yes. Okay, there we go. So I want to talk through, we don't do these UDO text amendments all that often, so I want to talk through kind of the content of it, the process we followed. Specifically what this text amendment's doing, the bulk of it, 90+% of it, is making some amendments to our business neighborhood standards. I'll tell you why in just a second. So we'll talk through kind of what those standards say today, what steps the Plan Commission and staff have taken up to this point. I'm going to walk through at a high level what those amendments are, and then we're going to talk some of the next steps. So the business neighborhood district, we've got many different, I think 15 or 20 different zoning districts in our UDO, but this district in particular, I pulled these straight from the ordinance. It is a district that's intended to provide goods and services to neighborhoods and residential developments. As we're planning these districts, the ordinance states that we should protect this district from neighborhood serving commercial uses that would create land use conflicts, and it should be integrated at the community's neighborhoods at significant street intersections. This is the district we use, the zoning classification we use when we are planning for commercial within our residential areas. We want that small scale, residential, commercial, that old-fashioned kind of neighborhood corner store. And this is the zoning district we use to implement that. From a kind of intensity standpoint, we have 4 different business zoning classifications you can see on the screen there. Business neighborhood being the, I'll say, least intense. Again, it is intended to be next door to homes, whereas our most intense use there, business highway, is for big box stores and fast food places and car dealerships and things that would not jive well with residential properties. So just kind of some context here. We pulled these numbers when we were doing some research for all of this, but in the city, the city has planning jurisdiction for about 10,700 acres in the county. About 1,500 of those acres are zoned commercial, and a very small fraction, so 41 acres approximately, are zoned business neighborhood specifically. So about 15% of the city's jurisdiction is commercial, but 0.4% is business neighborhood. The reason why we focused on this is this zoning district specifically interacts with residential properties and can cause a lot of concern or conflict because it is integrated within neighborhoods, as opposed to a zoning district out on a highway with all kinds of other commercial zoning districts. So some examples of where this, again, there's 41 acres approximately in the city, but some locations in town that where this zoning classification is used. So the 5 Points area, entrances to Twin Lakes neighborhood, the entrance to Bear Run, both sides of the Walkerville Bridge, and then there's a few kind of scattered, if you think about some of the older areas of town, where some of those commercial areas are kind of a pocket within a residential, that's where we use these. So some of the steps we've taken leading up to here. So all of this was kicked off. You all probably heard a lot about it, but last spring and summer, the Plan Commission and BZA heard the cases associated with the DG Market down in off Twin Lakes and McKay Road. So that property there and the properties around it and some other properties in the area are controlled by this business neighborhood zoning classification. That started the discussion. And before those cases even made it through Plan Commission and BZA, staff started working on kind of a deep dive into what that district actually looked like, some of the problems we were seeing in real time. We hadn't seen a lot of development happen in those business neighborhood districts, especially new development. So we kind of took that deep dive throughout the summer of last year and prepared a report that was analyzing that whole area. Throughout fall and spring of last year, based off that report, the Plan Commission had established a committee, a smaller working group of Plan Commission and BZA members to advise staff and work with us on a regular basis to develop some proposed amendments. What you don't see on the schedule is when Maria left, Mike started, and I took paternity leave. There's a big gap there where this project went on the back burner for a little bit. But this summer, we picked it back up and started working through with the committee on some of those amendments. And last month, they finalized what amendments they thought were appropriate for that district based off of research and discussion and all the public comment at all the different Plan Commission BZA groups. So with that, I will actually tell you what the amendments are now. So like I said, a vast majority of them focus around the business neighborhood district. So the current standards for BN, they are governed by the same architectural standards as our residential districts. These are very minimal standards. They really only regulate some roof slope and overhang requirements, but there are no regulations on building materials, facade elements, windows or fenestration. What we learned through the DG Market case is because of the type of petition they had filed and kind of the leverage that gave the city, we were able to force and implement some architectural standards that would not have been required. So what we're proposing to do is shift the entire business neighborhood district into the normal commercial institutional architectural standards. So it would have to meet all of a new development in that district, have to meet all the same architectural standards as any other business, central business general, highway, institutional building, so that all of those same expectations carry through. Commercial standards, this is another one that we had some issues, not a ton. It was more during the discussion with the committee that we brought up some things. So the current standards, they have requirements for public and private sidewalks. They have requirements for customer entrances, and requirements on screening of outdoor storage, trash collection, loading areas, yada, yada. What we, the committee and staff had worked on and what's being proposed is maintaining all those current standards, but then adding some requirements. Right now, if our adopted Shelbyville bicycle and pedestrian master plan calls for trails or bike lanes or just added pedestrian infrastructure in an area, we don't have a tool to require that if that trail is running in front of the development you're putting in. So the proposed language would change that. It also adds this fee in lieu of. So there are some areas where maybe it's physically impossible or it's not safe at the moment to require public sidewalks to be installed because they're going nowhere. The language that we would be proposing would allow the developer to, instead of putting in those sidewalks, if the city engineer finds it not safe, to basically just pay for the sidewalks. So in the future, we would have the money to be able to install them when it was appropriate, when it was safe, and when adjoining properties had sidewalks to connect things. Some lighting standards, this was a big one for that DG market case. The previous standards had a maximum height in that district of up to 20 feet. They had some language about light trespass, and they were using a measurement called lux to measure light. It's not an industry standard, which we found out throughout this whole process. And we also found out that the current language of the ordinance only regulated lights within a parking lot, not anything else on the site. And furthermore, going through all this, we found out that a lot of our subdivision standards had almost no guidance on light placement. So there were a lot of changes here. So the light trespass requirement is now being measured in lux, but also foot candles, which is the industry standard. The maximum pole height is now site-wide instead of parking lot specific. And then in the, or with the DG market case, the Board of Zoning Appeals for that specific property had set a maximum freestanding light height of about 4 or 5 feet, which resulted in those lighted bollards around the site. If you've been there in the evening, instead of taller lights, the committee and the staff were very happy with the outcome of that because it provided a lot of light on the site without bleeding into the whole residential area. So, and then finally, the subdivision lighting standards were just completely rewritten to provide a lot more guidance on where lights should be placed and add some clarity on who would own those light poles when all was said and done. Another piece that's come up a few times, not so much with the DG market case, was parking standards in this business neighborhood. Again, we use this district not only in Twin Lakes or Bear Run, but at 5 Points in older areas in town. So we need tools that are flexible for new development that might be a little bit more car oriented and older development that is much more walkable and bikeable and that we don't need to be as car dependent. So right now the current standards have minimum parking requirements. They have no administrative reduction in those. And currently there's no requirement for bicycle parking or bike racks. We have a statement in there that encourages the installation of them, but beyond that, we don't have anything. So the minimum parking requirements themselves would remain unchanged. We've added language that in these older, more established areas, administratively, that parking minimum could be reduced down. When that reduction happens, there would be a requirement for additional bike racks. The thought there being, if you're developing in an older area where it doesn't make sense to build a 50-space parking lot, offsetting that with some bike parking. And then we've also now required all new commercial developments to have a minimum of 4 bike parking spots. So essentially 2 bike rack spots, so that all of these new trails we're using or building out have a place for you to ride your bike and park at these new commercial establishments. And then we also, just to go a little bit further. We set what those minimum requirements are, and then we have a lot of specifications on what the design, spacing, layout, ADA, all of that for the bike parking is. And then the other piece for the business neighborhood, we went through the permitted uses and the special exception uses to see what changes might be needed, what made sense. So just a little bit of background for everyone, a little zoning 101. All of our zoning districts have a list of permitted uses. These are uses that just by owning the land, you have the right to do that use. You can buy the building and start operating that type of business, that type of use. And you don't need any kind of special approvals or anything. You need a permit if you're gonna do some construction, but you have the right to do it. Special exception uses are a little different. They are, I like to say, uses that typically work. They are uses that still require a case-by-case approval by the BZA, but they're probably appropriate. So we took a look at both of these lists of uses to make sure that they are actually appropriate, but also they're updated with today's standards. So I won't read the entire list to you. I'll tell you what changed here. In the permitted uses category, we actually added a number of uses, trying to enable more development in these areas, make it a little bit easier. So the uses we added were office uses, so attorneys or Jones offices or that kind of stuff would be just permitted by right without any special hoops. In the institutional uses, community centers, libraries, medical and health clinics are the ones that are added there. And then everything else on this page remains unchanged. And then that list of special exception uses, you can see at the very top, the new one. Again, this would require a case-by-case approval, but bank or financial institution is the new. And then the three that were removed were actually moved from special exception to permitted. So you see office use, community center, and then medical and health clinic being the three changes there. So, I'm gonna pause real quick. So, any questions on that before I jump into some of the other amendments we're doing?
Any questions from the board? Okay,
Okay.
plow forward.
Yes. So anytime we do these larger UDO text amendments, we don't do them often. They're kind of an undertaking. We have a running list of smaller changes that need to happen in the UDO. This is that section. So we try to lump in a few of these just corrections or try to implement some best practices. These things are written by humans, so there are errors every now and again we find and we need to fix. So that's what the rest of this is. So the first of these is some clarification on data processing center versus data center. So this is something that has been a hot topic at all of our planning conferences, but currently our UDO, because a lot of the language was written, a lot of the definitions were written a few decades ago, we don't have a definition for data centers. The closest thing we have is a data processing center. And when you read that text, that is essentially, they describe a building where people go in and they input numbers into a computer. That's not what a data center is. So best practices and what we're hearing from a lot of conferences is to try to clarify this so that it's not a point of contention if something were to happen. So what we are proposing to do here is add a clear definition for what a data center is, add or changing the term data processing center to data processing and entry center, and then making those permitted uses in our industrial districts. So cleaning that up a little bit and future-proofing our ordinance, because like I said, a lot of these terms are a couple decades old and we don't always move as quickly as the rest of the development world. Okay, then some other smaller amendments based off some feedback from the committee and from our boards. A residential sidewalk exemption. So in the last couple of years, because we've seen a lot more residential development than historically, we have seen development in some neighborhoods that do not have sidewalks. What we have done, because the ordinance right now requires every new primary structure on a residential lot to have sidewalks installed. If it is not practical, the Board of Zoning Appeals has probably issued 10 or 15 of these variances to waive that requirement, but have a written commitment recorded against the property that if either of the neighbors installs a sidewalk, if you have something to connect to, you will install yours in the future. That is the language that we are proposing. Basically taking that process that requires a homeowner to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals and takes a month and a half, and just moving it administratively. It's something that the BZA had wanted, just because they were seeing these every single month for a little while, and it helps move that process along. Similarly, residential parking requirements in older neighborhoods. Right now, we have a requirement of at least 2 off-street parking spots and at least 1 garage parking spot for every single new residential primary structure in the city. That works and that makes sense in new developments. We've gotten a lot of pushback and had to work with developers that are trying to build on infill lots, especially in older areas where maybe you can't fit all of that on a lot. Maybe no one else in the area has a garage or has 2 off-street parking spots and garage. So this would give, the language specifically would only apply to some older neighborhoods, but it would give that administrative ability to reduce that requirement down to 0, if that's what the rest of the neighborhood has. Okay. Talk through this real quick, and then everyone probably has a ton of questions. So the process for this, because we don't do this often, I'll just remind everyone, tonight we're doing first reading at Common Council. Assuming it passes this evening, it'll be remanded to the Plan Commission for a formal recommendation. That is scheduled for next Monday. So the Plan Commission will hear that. They'll conduct a public hearing and they'll forward back a recommendation, favorable, unfavorable, or favorable with some proposed changes. So after that hearing, we will prepare that recommendation and forward it on to you all. And then at this rate, this should go to your November 5th council meeting. I believe that's when it was moved to, I was told. So, and that'll be the final reading. Assuming that passes, it'll become effective then. And we can make some of these changes to the UDO. With that, questions? I know I threw a lot at you.
Any questions from the council? I know this has been a process that's been going on for a long time with the Planning Commission and a little over a year with everything you've been putting into it. So a lot of things kind of accumulated to kind of lead up to where we are with it. So.
And I want to thank the Plan Commission and the committee members that have worked on it, and Maria Henriquez, our former deputy director. This was kind of her baby while she was here. So she spearheaded a lot of the work. And then Mike and I have kind of picked up her slack and finished it the rest of the way. So it's a big team effort.
Any questions from the public regarding all the changes? Please step up. Please step up. State your name and your address, please.
Joni Shaw, what else do you need? Address?
Where do you live? Yeah.
I am on LaBelle Avenue in Walkerville.
Okay.
I just wanted to know what was the data processing, where it would be allowed, and there was another thing. Sorry, you were going fast and I was having trouble hearing all the things. I guess the parking thing too in older developments as well, and any potential new development in older areas as well.
Yeah. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you. The data center and data processing and entry centers, those would just be restricted to industrial areas. So our light industrial and our general industrial. That's generally like Northridge Industrial Park is all kind of general industrial area. Tom Hessian, when you think of factories or warehouses, those general areas are where those zoning districts are at. And then the question about parking in residential areas, the change in the ordinance would just allow the minimum number of parking spots that's required in a new development to be reduced down if it's in an older area where there might not be an abundance of space for parking. Yes. Yes, it's been something that's plagued us for a little while, so. Thank you.
Mr. Asher, any questions online by any chance? Any other comments? Okay, motion been made and seconded.
We voted for pass. First reading.
But we do vote for it?
We voted for the.
Oh, we already did
first
that.
reading.
Okay.
So it
All
came
right.
through. I think that was-
Don't think we did yet. Okay. So,
Yeah.
we did? No,
Go ahead.
I don't think we did.
Won't
I don't
hurt
think
to
we
vote
did.
again.
Yep, not gonna hurt to vote again, so, okay. How do we vote? If, voting for it, please respond with an A.
Like-
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign.
So it moves on to the
Motion
planning commission.
passes 6-0.
Thank you all.
Thank you for that.
Adam.
Appreciate all the efforts going into it to verify as well. Okay, ordinance number 2530-3046, Ms. Wilson.
Whereas the city of Shelbyville Airport now sells aviation fuel and is in the receipt of revenues from the sale of the fuel, and common council has reviewed the Aviation Development Fund and found it needs amended to accommodate the revenue from the sale of fuel and the additional expenses of the airport. Whereas the city of Shelbyville Common Council finds that it is in the best interest of the city to expand the Aviation Development Fund to include the additional revenue and expenses of the airport.
Motion to approve.
We have and a second. Thank you. So we have a motion accepted. Who would be here? Is this you, Mr. Asher?
Yeah, I'd like to add a few things if you don't mind. As you know, as of March or April of this year, we started selling fuel. We went away from using Jet Access to run our airport, and now we run it ourselves. So we have new employees, and we were purchasing fuel. None of that money was appropriated. Now we've sold a ton of fuel, and they're doing a wonderful job out there, and we've got a flight school out there, and they're busy and selling a lot of fuel. So we're stockpiling a bunch of revenue that cannot be used at this time because you know how government works. So we are creating a non-reverting fund, or not creating, we are amending a non-creating or a non-reverting fund that already exists. And that's what you're hearing today. That is step one of the process. Step two, we will do a transfer resolution, moving the fuel revenue into that non-reverting fund. And at the same time, step three, we will amend special appropriations, which special appropriations you approve one time a year. And those are all the non-appropriated items. And we will then be able to pay the taxes, and we can go to end time and pay taxes, which needs to be done. We can catch up on some of the shortfalls, such as the buying of the fuel that was not planned for this year, and the fact that we actually have employees out there that we pay now versus Jet Access. So this will help me clean up things with the help of council, Jennifer Meltzer. We come together. This is the easiest way to do this, and we would appreciate your support. That it'll keep us from having to go to DLGF and do an additional appropriation, which is messy. It takes a lot of time. This is much easier. So would appreciate your support because it'll help me do my job.
Questions, comments, from the public? I think this is something we kind of saw coming and anticipated as we were making some changes, but we knew we needed to wait and see what direction is going to go to have to make these change by the end of the year to do what we need to do, get the bills paid. But it sounds good at what we're doing up there, so. And motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay, motion passes on first reading 6-0. Miscellaneous business, the police contract is here for tonight. It's been in discussion. Is there anyone, just for us?
I told Jody Branham that I would represent this as well.
Thank you.
What you have there, any changes are highlighted. You're going to find that there's a 2% raise in there, which is across the board anyway for the rest of the city employees. And there's a clothing allowance change. And Might be a couple little verbiages here and there that might change, but you've had it in your packet, and I think you'll notice it jumps out at you. It's highlighted. Anything changed?
Yep, I know there was some inclusion of the merit board language put in there. The short-term disability plan benefits got updated and clothing allowance went up about $200, if I recall for everything, so. Okay. Do we need to take comment on? Didn't think so, okay. So we have the police contract in front of us, board. All those in favor of approving the contract as presented, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay, get that signed and get that, might have to wait for Scott's signature on it, but we'll get that going here tonight.
President Johnson, you may sign that as presiding officer.
Gotcha. All right, any reports from committees, boards, commissions?
Our ordinance committee has changed its meeting time to Monday, November 10th at 4:30.
Any other comments from the citizens? Anything online, Mr. Asher? Would like to acknowledge and welcome the scouts tonight, the troop 203. I should remember that. Guys, scouts, you guys have some great leadership there. I have a couple young men that are Eagle Scouts as a result of this. Our community has some tremendous leadership, and this program, scouting in general, been around a long time, obviously, but what we have going on in Shelbyville with the scouting is outstanding, and the quantity and quality of individuals, and I attribute, it's to the families, but the leadership is outstanding with Colonel Lancaster, Mr. West, Mr. Walkie back there. So thanks for that, and thanks for being here tonight. Greatly appreciate it. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask any of the members. It's a pretty open forum with this stuff. Our next city council meeting will be on Wednesday, November 5th. We have several people who will be out, including the mayor, on the 3rd. So we will be meeting on the 5th to go second readings on these things. So any other questions for the good of the order? Comments? Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. And we are adjourned. Thank you very much.